morning and welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by Get Go Cafe and Market, where right now they got their burger specials.
Burgers, not Roethlisbergers.
No,
either.
not Roethlisberger, just the burgers.
Not
the meat,
Pittsburghers.
The not
either.
Pittsburghers,
Just
although
burgers.
Pittsburghers do enjoy burgers.
Well, these burgers are thick. They come with your choice of toppings that are fresh. You actually watch them make the thing right in front of you.
Which
it's
is
not
really
like
good.
It's not like people think of convenience store food.
Yeah.
That thing's been sitting in a wrapper
No,
forever. They have chefs
fresh
that are actually
toppings.
making them for you around the clock, by the way.
Yes.
Let's talk about something that I don't think we've ever talked about.
Sure, why not?
Except off camera.
Oh, yeah.
And that is football talking heads.
Oh.
And by that, I'm referring to not the ones that do the play-by-play and the color commentary, and we all know
They're just doing their jobs.
that's just doing their jobs, and the rest of that is all Tony Romo's world, and we're just living in it. But I'm talking about what's happened with, in particular, it's not just ESPN, but it's FS1 and it's some others that have created this reality TV show mentality when they're discussing football. The Steelers were the primary victim, not culprit, victim of this over the past offseason. It's going to be somebody else, maybe the Browns, before long. What has happened to this?
To the culture.
To this specific culture, the ESPN culture. I don't mean to just keep picking on them, but you know, they are who they are.
Right, but think about it. It's the hot take culture. It's the we gotta have something that reverberates and gets people talking. It's why Mike Florio continues to say this is what's going on in Pittsburgh. Meanwhile, everyone in Pittsburgh is like, no, it's not. Right.
Yeah.
But by continuing to say these things, you get people who are A, agreeing with you and excited to agree with you, or B, they disagree with you vehemently and they hate you and they will continue.
But they're
to watch
saying your name.
Right.
That's the hot takes culture. That's the Skip Bayless thing where
Yep.
you just say something that's so ridiculous.
LeBron's the worst, and everyone
Somebody
hates you
said
and loves
something
and
about
watches.
basketball that was ridiculous like that. We had it in Hot Button. I can't remember where they were comparing somebody to Kobe Bryant.
So Max Kellerman said that Kawhi
This
Leonard.
the boxing guy?
On
ESPN?
The guy that's with Stephen A. now. He said that Kawhi Leonard was as clutch as Kobe Bryant, which is ugh. Don't ever say that.
See, I never even heard of this dude, but meaning the first one that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously everybody's heard of Kobe Bryant. But they say these things just to get you to discuss their names. To say, like we just did now, Max Kellerman.
And
just
now
got
you know Max Kellerman.
Everybody's, hey, Max Kellerman. Now that's just a name that rings in your head. That's kind of how that works, and that's how they're conditioned. They're actually taught to do that at ESPN. What bothers me the most about this coming to football is that football was the one sport that had it right.
Yeah, they didn't have to deal with that.
Because football was the one that had 2 or 3 guys like you or Ron Jaworski or
Tom
Merrill
Jackson,
Hodge
guys that-
and TJ who knew the game and who were respecting the game and who were talking about the game.
Right? And not this nonsense.
More than any other sport, that inside edge, you would see the X's and O's breakdowns, you would see plays, and you watch the sport through a different light, and now you turn on even NFL Network.
Yep. Good Morning Football.
Their own network has now been reduced to this crap.
Yeah, I agree. It's a problem. I think it's turning the culture in the wrong direction. That's why I've always written the way Carter's Classroom is written, because I want to talk about
Football.
the game.
Football.
Yes.
Football junkie over there.
Sup?
What do you watch?
What do I watch?
Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah, but it's not just sitting at your laptop and watching game film. I know you do that a ton.
You're right.
But when you're watching, like, you know how when you're working on something, what's the background music, so to speak?
Okay.
What do you have on?
I
Don't
love,
say the NBA playoffs.
First of all, yes. Second of all, I love NFL Network's top 10 lists. They are a lot of fun to watch.
The historic ones.
The historic ones.
Yeah.
And I especially like it when they update them, because sometimes you get ones from like 2009, 2010, you're like, that's way out of date. But occasionally you'll get one that's like, hey, top catches in this type of environment, top runners of this style, top coaches that
People
did this.
love. We find that out on our site. When we do top 10 lists, they get
They're
all
so much
kinds of
fun.
page views because our readers, our subscribers will come in and they want to participate. They want
Right.
to come in with their own or tell you that, you know, you're a dope or whatever else, and it works pretty nicely in that regard. To me, the stuff that resonates when I'm watching football type TV, and you know what I'm going to say because it's football life.
What's that?
Football
Oh,
life.
football. Oh, I do love that show.
Because I think of football, and this is going to sound really contrarian to what was in the first segment, but I think of football from the standpoint of the old school NFL films, okay?
John Facenda.
But not just John Facenda or Steve Sable or even the classic music, or even the descriptions of the games like the Ice Bowl and Super Bowl III and everything, and of course all of the various Steelers chapters, but also about the people.
Yeah.
And to me, a football life is the crown jewel of this sort of thing, because they're going into the actual humans. I saw one on the Jacksonville receiving duo.
Oh yeah, Keenan McCardell and Jimmy Smith.
And the relationship between the two, the things in particular that they'd been through, their relationships with Mark Brunell, seeing them interviewed now, the resistance, the stuff. I felt like I knew Tom Coughlin better than at any point in his life.
Yeah.
From following him from afar. That to me was that's the quintessential football stuff.
And for all the things that NFL Network does, I've always felt like we were just talking about Good Morning Football and all of that. You can get rid of all those shows. Give me your top 10 lists. Give me Football Life. Give me America's Game when they do which is now their yearly culmination of the Super Bowl champion team, and they interview 3 players or a coach. And I think that's one of their better productions as well. And then just give me great games. If you just took 2 hours to put together classic games that maybe I didn't see.
Oh, you mean air the spliced versions of the games, the condensed?
And you have all the rights to them, and not necessarily even one that's from 5 years ago. Air one from like Steelers Raiders 1978 or something like that. And
with
fans,
the broadcast, just to be clear, we're talking about.
How many people that sit around and watch NFL Network would go, that's what I want to watch, not Nate Washington or Nate Burleson debate with these people that I don't even know about football. I'd rather watch these great players duking it out in this historical game that maybe I saw when I was a kid, maybe I always heard about and always wanted to see.
But even then, there's something very different about watching it and experiencing it as it's happening.
Yeah.
I have, for myself, even though I covered them and everything else here, I have complete games from the Steelers championships, actually from the Pirates championships in 71 and 79. I also have the 60, which is a blast to watch. Yeah, the black and white footage of it, and all of the Penguins ones as well. And you just pop it in and you just sit back like the game is just on and you're just watching the game. Cool. And you see things in those games that, again, no matter how many times you've seen the highlights or the play, and everyone remembers Ben throwing to Santonio, but do you remember the whole drive?
Yeah.
Do you remember everything they did to get up the field? How the whole planet knew the ball was going to Santonio on every single snap, and it didn't matter? Do you remember what led to the Steelers having their rear ends backed up in that situation? Do you remember how you felt when Larry Fitz caught that ball and ran right down the middle of the field?
All those things come back to you.
Can't beat it. Can't beat it.
I think do that more, NFL Network.
He watches the NBA playoffs.
I do.
I watch the Stanley Cup playoffs. This debate as to not so much which is better. I mean, that's just a preference thing. It's not one that's better than the other. But the debate as to whether or not people in Pittsburgh watch the NBA playoffs more than they do the Stanley Cup playoffs is a never-ending one, I might add.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear that constantly. Because obviously Pittsburgh has an NHL team and an incredibly popular one, and it will never have an NBA team. But when you look at the ratings after the Penguins are out, the NBA playoffs do pretty well. Now, the counter to that is that, well, of course, because they get tons and tons of publicity. They're the entire.
I mean, they're on ESPN and TNT and ABC.
Yeah,
wow.
And the NHL kind of spreads it between their main network and the NBC Sports Network that nobody can really find.
Right.
So it's a bit of a different beast here. What's your thought on it, though?
I've always had a problem because, I'm a person that I appreciate hockey. I've always loved basketball. I never played hockey, but I always liked it because I grew up in Pittsburgh, where Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr were my childhood.
But in Rome.
Exactly, and it's I liked that. But I always had a problem whenever I would try to talk about basketball around my hockey friends, and they were like, "Man, basketball sucks." Or when I tried to talk about hockey around my basketball friends, and they'd be like, "Hockey sucks," and I'm like,
They don't suck. Again, it's just
exactly.
neither
It's
one.
just about,
basketball's a beautiful sport that's played all over the world. There's nothing about it. Like I said, I don't have a problem with I don't have time in the day.
And I think
I have to do a lot with the teams we cover.
Right, and I think that comes across with a lot of people is that when you're investing so much time into something, you got to pick your battles and pick your time when you're going to watch something. And for a lot of fans, it's a lot to watch all these different hockey games because you want to see if the Sharks are going to pull it out. A lot of people wanted to see the Bruins get smacked out of the playoffs, and if the Jerks would go all the way. People,
they didn't.
They didn't. But people wanted to see if that would happen. And then when you do all that, it's tough to then try to flip over to TNT or ABC and say, "Let me watch the Warriors for the next 3 hours."
Yeah,
no, it's too much.
No, and plus, there's also now in the social media culture where you dive into your pool with your friends.
Yep.
And if you all of a sudden bring up something that they're not talking about, then you're the weirdo and you don't fit in. And I just think in Pittsburgh, I mean, it is a hockey town on a lot of levels, but it's also been always, especially at the grassroots levels, a basketball town. People can't forget that. In the high schools,
people do. Yep.
Basketball is way more ingrained in our local culture than hockey was and is. And that might.
And when Pitt was good, this town was going nuts for them.
The same 12,300 people were going nuts for them. I really believe that.
You really think so?
Yeah, I think we've seen some evidence of that. And I say that with nobody enjoyed being in the Pete watching Jamie Dixon's teams and covering them than I did. Yeah. I loved it. I was really into it, loved writing about it. And but I never looked at that and said, "Oh, Pittsburgh loves basketball." I looked at that as here are 12,300 diehard Pitt basketball fans.
And they're really into this moment.
And they're really into it.